So President Trump has directly addressed the housing affordability crisis in America, and his housing agenda to combat this crisis has been revealed through HUD Secretary Scott Turner. And I'm going to go over exactly what the plans are and what's about to happen with housing in this country. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Now, everyone knows that the rising cost of home ownership has been a huge problem in America, as home prices are constantly increasing. I recently did a breakdown showing how the average household income can't even afford the average home price. So it's obvious why this will be a top concern amongst 2024 presidential voters, with 69% of voters saying that they are very concerned about home prices. So of course, Trump had to address the issue. He had no choice, and he did so with the signing of an executive order, which included a memo titled "Delivering Emergency Price Relief for American Families and Defeating the Cost of Living Crisis." In the memo, Trump acknowledges that many Americans are unable to purchase homes due to historically high prices. But to fix this, he says he's taking appropriate actions to lower the cost of housing and expand the housing supply. So before we dive into just how Trump and his administration plan to accomplish this, how exactly did we end up in this situation in the first place? Now, in true Trump fashion, he blames it all on Biden, saying that it's because of Biden's destructive policies, his increased government spending, and his unnecessary and illegal regulatory demands. But then again, Trump blames everything on Biden, so what else is new? But let me take you guys back to 2006, when builders were building homes like crazy and lenders were issuing home loans like crazy. So in the early 2000s, interest rates were at historic lows at the time, which made it a lot easier for people to qualify for mortgages. And on top of that, lenders were making it extremely easy to get a loan, having very loose lending practices, issuing loans to individuals who should not have even qualified. I mean, you could have been a plumber or a chef with terrible credit and got $1 million home loan. A lot of these risky loans were issued with good initial terms with an adjustable rate so that the buyer could qualify, with the anticipation that they would be able to quickly refinance in the easier terms. But unfortunately, interest rates began to rise, which dropped home prices, and many of these risky buyers were unable to refinance to better loan terms. And once their initial term expired and their interest rates adjusted, they were no longer able to afford their homes, which led to tons of foreclosures. And this led to an even higher supply of homes on the market with less demand, which drove home prices down even further. So banks were in serious trouble. This resulted in the US government eventually having to bail out over 700 banks, investing over $236 billion to stabilize the financial system. This collapse came to be known as the Great Recession, with experts saying that a number of causes contributed to it. The low interest rates, the loose lending practices of lenders, the anticipation that home values would continue to rise, the overbuilding of new homes, which weren't always affordable, and the low quality of construction for a lot of these homes that were built, which led to future problems with these homes, making them not even worth what they thought they were initially. The entire situation was a mess and lasted for years and took even more years to recover. Now, fast forward to 2020. The housing market has fully recovered from the Great Recession. Lenders no longer have such loose lending practices to risky buyers. The economy is pretty strong. And then COVID happens. People were losing their jobs. And the fact that we were headed into uncharted territories as a nation was enough to cause fear, anxiety, and shake up the economy. In response, in order to ease financial pressure on consumers and make it less expensive to purchase big-ticket items, the Fed lowered interest rates, just like before in the early 2000s. Interest rates dropped to the lowest that they'd ever been in history, and this caused home prices to surge. But things were a little different than 2006. Buyers had to fully qualify, and on top of that, they were now getting fixed rate mortgages, which kept the mortgage rate the same for the entire life of the loan, instead of adjustable rates. Eventually, interest rates began to shoot up, but home prices weren't quite reacting how they normally do when interest rates rise. Instead of home prices dropping, they were staying stable, and sometimes even rising. Why is this? Well, unlike 2006, a lot of home buyers could afford their homes and weren't dependent on refinancing, which means there were extremely less foreclosures. And also, if individuals were having trouble with their mortgage, lenders gave them an option to file forbearance, which temporarily suspended their mortgage payments and allowed homeowners to stay in their homes. And eventually, all of the missed payments were added to the end of the loan. And this is an option that's still available and being used by homeowners to this day. And since a lot of homeowners either bought or refinanced while interest rates were extremely low, there's not an incentive for them to sell right now, because it's going to cost them a lot more money as interest rates have risen significantly. All of these reasons contribute to why home prices are still high, because the supply of homes on the market is very low. And like anything else, when the demand is high and the supply is low, prices rise. That, along with increased costs associated with government regulations, materials, labor, financing, insurance, and property taxes, have all led to the continued rise in home prices. And that's where we are today, in the middle of an affordability crisis. So, what exactly does Trump plan on doing about it? So recently, HUD Secretary Scott Turner interviewed with Punch Bowl News to outline HUD's housing agenda. Again, Trump said he wants to lower the cost of housing and expand the housing supply. And to accomplish this, HUD announced that one of their plans is to partner with the Department of the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, and identify federal lands where affordable housing could be built. So Turner and Burgum will launch a joint task force for the Federal Land for Housing Initiative to find underutilized land for residential development and housing use, which is being promoted as a way to increase the housing supply and lower costs for Americans. The Interior oversees more than 500 million acres of federal land, and they say that much of it is suitable for residential use. So hopefully this is something that'll work, as adding to the supply of affordable homes on the market will help lower home prices. Another plan for HUD to attack the affordable housing crisis is expanding Opportunity Zones, which is a program in the Road to Housing Act that Scott Turner helped implement with Senator Tim Scott during the first Trump administration. Opportunity Zones are distressed, low-income communities in the United States that encourage investors to invest in these areas because they'll receive tax benefits. They believe that by expanding Opportunity Zones, it would continue to spur economic growth and job creation in these low-income communities, with the overall goal being to increase access to affordable housing. However, critics have said that the program has been more of a boon for wealthy investors than low-income communities. So far, there hasn't been enough information to judge the program's effectiveness, but even still, both Turner and Scott want to expand it. Now next, Secretary Scott Turner addressed the administration's plan of deregulation, which includes a full program inventory at HUD and a review of outdated requirements. When speaking on housing subsidy programs specifically, Turner said, "We don't want to grow HUD programs. We want to work to get people off of government subsidies," and says that rental assistance should be viewed as short-term solutions rather than permanent support. Going on to talk about potential strategies to increase self-sufficiency among HUD program participants by implementing work requirements and time limits with subsidy programs. This is something that keeps getting talked about. It's a hot topic right now, and I'm almost certain that these eligibility requirements will eventually be implemented. Secretary Turner also addressed the need to review and update funding allocation formulas, specifically mentioning the Community Development Block Grant Program, known as the CDBG program. So this program provides funding to states, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities, primarily benefiting low and moderate income individuals. So HUD will provide the funds to local governments, and the local governments will administer the program and determine which local projects receive funding. When it comes to housing, CDBG funds can be used for the acquisition of real property, relocation and demolition, rehabilitation of residential and non-residential structures, and construction of public facilities and improvements. I actually recently had a buyer who used the CDBG grant for Baltimore City, and this buyer got $15,000 to go towards their home purchase, which was a huge help for this particular client as far as making the home more affordable. So the CDBG program is very helpful and useful, and I hope that this review that Secretary Turner is talking about does not result in the program getting terminated, because this administration has been slashing programs left and right, and the ones that are being affected the most are the ones who are the most vulnerable and need assistance. So that pretty much summarizes the housing agenda that President Trump and HUD Secretary Scott Turner have planned for now. Expanding opportunity zones through the Road to Housing Act, using federal land for affordable housing development, advocating for deregulation and review of outdated requirements, revising funding formulas for programs like CDBG, and promoting self-sufficiency for rental subsidies by implementing work requirements and time limits for participants. Now, no matter what moves are made, everything still has to go through Congress. So I will definitely keep an eye out on what's happening and keep giving updates. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.